Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 492.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary Podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today because one of the great things that tends to happen, when you are out there building a business is that you have this, we'll call them community of customers, if you will. People who like your product, know your product, and it's great. And amongst themselves, they can form, this support group, if you will, depending on the type of product that you have out there in the marketplace. Yet, it's been said more than once that sometimes being an entrepreneur, and definitely being one that's online, can feel a little lonely. There's a dearth of resources, a dearth of ideas, a dearth of individuals that you can commiserate with or celebrate with, or even understand some of the things that you are going through, so that everybody, that rising tide can lift all boats and everybody work together. Well, interestingly, we have found an entrepreneur who's decided to make sure that that is no longer the case. Literally building a business cooperative that is designed to make sure that no entrepreneur is, i.e., left behind or alone. So we're going to meet him today. I'm talking, of course, about Barth. Now, you may have heard of Empowery already because they've been in the news. But what's interesting is that we're going to talk about the what is a cooperative, why it's necessary, and we're talking about it with an individual who has many decades of corporate and business experience. But most importantly, what pushes him forward is the desire to make sure that you and I, the entrepreneurs, are connected. So let's get ready to listen, to learn, and to love Barth. Barth, how you doing?
I'm extremely well. I think I said spectacular to you earlier, and I'll stand by that still.
That's good. Very few people are willing to commit to spectacular because that has a lot to go behind it. But I'm glad that you are there.
Got to go all in. If you're going, go all in.
Indeed. Now, this being the first time that you're here, I got to ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody else the first time that they're here. You ready?
Surely.
All right. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes, Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, etc. And I tend to think that entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton of things in common. For example, as an entrepreneur, occasionally I can imagine myself flying around town, using our products and services, saving customers, and yes, maybe I am wearing a cape. But also, like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. For example, with Spider-Man. There was a time where he was just a kid going to school, doing his thing, taking some photos, nothing special. And then one day he gets bit by a spider, discovers he's got a special superhuman ability, and gets to choose whether to use it for good or for evil. So my question to you is as follows. Before Empowery, before all of your corporate experience, before maybe even before you being the triathlete, woodworker, golfer, beekeeper, all of these things that people know about you today, what we would love to know is, who is Barth?
Well, it's a Western Pennsylvania story, I guess you could say, because it's not atypical to some, any of the listeners that would be from that area, but you got to see a very vibrant brick and mortar manufacturing type economy in Western Pennsylvania outside of Pittsburgh. Big steel mills and glass factories and rubber. There was a General Tire rubber plant in my town. And you got to see these vibrant communities with like my little town called Jeanette, where I grew up outside of Pittsburgh, had 15,000 people in it when I lived there through high school. Now it's down to, I think, 8,000 or 9,000. And it's just it's endemic, I think, of what's happened a lot in different parts of the United States, especially in the Rust Belt, Detroit, Chicago, some other areas, where we thought it would never go away. We thought it could never end. And union workers were making $30-$40 an hour in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s in my town, and living quite well. And it all went away. And I think, if anything, it taught me is that nothing's forever. Never rest on your laurels. Never ever think that there can't be a destructive market force. In this case, in today's day and age, it's Amazon. But that's not the last one. Amazon won't be on top forever. Sears Roebuck wasn't on top forever. Montgomery Ward's wasn't on top forever. Macy's and you just go down the line and things. There's creative destruction all the time. So I think really what happened was I got to see how you always have to strive to be better and stay on top, because you can't, if you give an inch, you lose a mile.
What's interesting, when you were just talking a second ago, I'm willing to bet that there are some people listening right now who have never even heard Montgomery Ward until you said it.
But back in the day, that's instructive of the point, is they were a dominant force at one time, and a lot of people in the club never heard of them. And that, will our great grandchildren know who Amazon is? That's the great question. I mean, they may still be around, they may not. Who knows what happens as time goes on? Because 100 years ago, there's in the little town I live in, it's called Ligonier, Pennsylvania, and it's a very historic town. And there was a French and Indian War battle here, so there's a big fort, the reconstructed fort here. But it's interesting, in their newspaper, they talk about 100 years every week in the newspaper. There's 100 years ago, 75 years ago, and 25 years ago. And you really get to look back, and they were building Route 30, the first, and I live right off of Route 30. It's Lincoln Highway, and it also hooks up to Route 66 in places. But it, they were building that for the first time 100 years ago. They were just starting to travel cross country, and look at us now. And what's 100 years? I mean, that's someone's lifetime. It's not that long. So but the interesting thing now about this 175 and 25 years ago thing in the papers is in all those years we're at war. We're in World War I in 1918. We're in World War II, and we were in World War. We're just starting into World War II, and we were in Vietnam. So it's things change so quickly, and I think that's the major lesson I would love everybody to take away from this is adapt. Adapt quickly. Never get too staid or staunch, or stoic or unemotional about what's going to happen to you. Stay alert and lively.
Yeah, you're mentioning some very important things, because one of the challenges as an entrepreneur is, first of all, to get started, let alone stay started. But what you're not only saying is just like, even once you're started, the battle isn't over. It continues. How on earth is even an entrepreneur in today's economy to know who they're fighting half the time?
Well, that's why my brother's a Berkshire Hathaway CEO, and he was out at the the stockholders meeting a few months ago, and so I was my interest in the news was heightened, and so in what was happening around the stockholders meeting for Berkshire Hathaway, and so Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger and Bill Gates got on MSNBC together. They spent an hour and a half, 2 hours. It was unbelievable the access they gave. But the three of them sat there. Now, these are three guys who buy and sell most people in the world, or most countries, I'll say, in the world. And because, they have more, they probably have a higher income, net worth than most countries. They all said, the reason I hang out with him, they pointed at each other, is because I hang out with people smarter than myself and that have done, more than I have. And here's three guys that arguably have could change the course of human history. And they're that humble that they're looking at each other saying, I hang out with him because he's smarter than I am. So I think that's what entrepreneurs have to do. They have to make sure that they have the right people around them, the right framework and structure around them. And that's the only way you can stay on top of this, the way this changes.
Yeah. Now, when I was looking at the site, Empowery.com, and I got to admit, when it said eCommerce Cooperative, I'm like, the only thing I had to read that, I mean, obviously I'm capable of reading the words, and I'm like, I think I know what they mean separately, but I have no idea what they mean together. So could you enlighten us?
Sure. And the cooperatives, they tend to confuse a lot of people when they hear the word. So it's kind of funny because it really shouldn't. They know about cooperatives. You almost every one of your listeners at some point is either in one or has been in one, because all credit unions are cooperatives. Nationwide Insurance is a cooperative. REI, if you buy anything, sporting, outdoor equipment, REI is a cooperative. So all that it really means, it's like a franchise. So it's like a McDonald's. It's similar to the way a McDonald's is run, but the difference is the owners are the owners of the locations are actually the shareholders too. So the difference between a franchise and a cooperative, both buy together, both merchandise and market and negotiate together. But a cooperative is owned by the actual members. I can't own a share of Empowery Cooperative because the members own the shares. And they can only own one non-appreciating share. So it completely remains egalitarian and democratic because nobody can have more control than the other. So that's why it's such a great business structure. Ben Franklin started the first one in 1752 in Philadelphia. For fire loss, because when someone's house would burn, the insurance company wouldn't want to pay the losses. They just leave town. Well, they pulled all the money together and they formed this cooperative, and that's where they started in the United States. 24 years before the Declaration of Independence. So it predates our country, as it predates the United States of America.
Interesting.
So So it's and forget about all that for a second, but just think about what it does for the member. And what it does is it's a family of people. You said, how does an entrepreneur stay on top of everything? And it was a perfect question to lead me into cooperatives, because, we do things like we have daily Facebook Live topics where one of me or my staff, we go out and search the internet looking for the most, pressing issues that are occurring in the most breaking news that is occurring in the e-commerce business. And we do 1 minute. We call it the Members Minute. We do 1 minute a day, just trying to help our members stay on top of what's going on. We have an all hands call, and at 8 a.m. all hands call once a month, where we give our members access to each other and to us. And then we have one convention a year. That'll probably be in the early spring out in Las Vegas. So, you're getting together with like-minded people. And we don't take everybody. In Empowery, we do our due diligence on a business when they're coming in. They need to be in, pretty heavily into e-commerce sales. They need to be doing good volume. They need to have good credit. So, we just don't bring in anyone, because we know that, the other members want to rub elbows and learn from and help teach the other entrepreneurs with whom they are rubbing elbows.
Yeah, totally understood. I get that. The birds of a feather, you want to hang out. But what exactly do you guys do other than provide information? I mean, is there some sort of, I don't know, buying power that you guys have together? I mean, because these businesses in theory could be in completely different verticals, could they not?
Yeah, well, in e-commerce, though, you think about it, there are some commonalities. Okay. Everyone needs third-party logistics. Everyone at one time or another needs inventory financing. Everybody at one time or another has to take a credit card. Everybody at one time or another has to, especially if they're dealing with anybody in China, there's a dispute that needs to get resolved. There is a photograph that needs to be taken of a product over there. There's an e-packet that needs to be delivered from China to a customer in the United States. I just ordered something for Rakuten. I ordered golf balls from Rakuten, which is the Japanese version of Amazon. And I'm not getting the same customer experience I get at Amazon, let me tell you. I did it because I went to their show and I wanted to understand what they were doing. But there's all these other marketplaces in the United States and in the world. And a lot of our members don't sell on them because there are difficulties. So we go negotiate with those people, with the executives of those marketplaces, so we can expand and diversify our members' business. Mm-hmm. But we also take care of the day-to-day stuff. So we have a CRM, an ERP, an enterprise resource planning platform called Persimmon that allows our members to go one-stop shop for all their needs, so they don't have to bolt together a lot of the off-the-shelf software to run their business, QuickBooks, and adding all kinds of bolt-ons to that to make sure they can run their business. We have a one-stop shop for it. We have global and international shipping. We have an auditing company for online auditing. We have currency exchange. So we've gone and negotiated all. We have. If they ever want to sell their business, we've already negotiated with a bank, with a small investment bank that will allow them to sell their business for more. So we've gone out and tried to identify everything that an e-commerce seller uses, negotiate a better price on it. And if any of your listeners know what a cooperative is, or if they deal with REI, for instance, they know that for every article of clothing or piece of camping gear they buy throughout the year, they get a rebate check at the end of the year, depending on their how much they spent. So we call it cash back. So everybody in a cooperative gets cash back for all of the things that they use throughout the year. So they should come out at the end of the year with more money in their pocket than they paid us to belong. That's the model.
Interesting. So let me see if I understand this correctly. And if I don't, I won't I won't be hurt if you're like, no, you got it backwards.
That's okay.
So I have a business selling stuff online. What I'm going to call the internal and back office stuff, you guys help me put together, but then I can then go sell my product on any marketplace I want. For lack of a better way of putting it, my head goes to Amazon first, and you guys are there to help me make sure that if anything changes, either in the back office space or some new strategy, something happens, I have access to the information that would be most relevant to me and my vertical. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and I'm glad that you are enjoying what you are hearing thus far. But here's one of the things that's really important. One of the most important things that you can do is get started. One of the things that I've said before, and I say again, once you get started, stay started. But more importantly, there can be lots of roadblocks to getting started. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove one of those roadblocks for you and make it a little bit easier. Because the thing that I don't want to stop you is thinking, do I need a local number? How about a long distance number? Or should it be 800? How on earth am I going to make that happen so that people can contact me as I'm out there building my business, making my cash flow grow? But most importantly, understanding that it doesn't have to be difficult. Many of you may know, but if you don't, there's a company out there by the name of Grasshopper. And what I want you to do is I want you to go over to trygrasshopper.com/cashflow-diary. Grasshopper is the entrepreneur's phone system. It works like a traditional phone system, but requires no hardware to purchase, no software to install. It's just a number that flat works. So if you are out there building that distributed workforce across many different locations, it's a way for you to still go out there and make your number be unified, simple, easy to use, something we've been using for quite some time. So again, go over to trygrasshopper.com/cashflow-diary. Now, let's get back to the rest of the story.
Exactly, and you got it. We don't have a deal with every marketplace yet. Sure. We're in the midst of negotiating that, but that you kind of gave the long-term play where think about it for a second. If you go to Amazon today as an independent seller, and we have our sellers do from $1 million to $40 million a year, the members of Empowery.
Okay,
but let's say you go and even as the $40 million guy, that's a blip on Amazon's screen, right?
Right.
Now, if you walk in a year from now or 2 years from now, or I walk in with the rest of my team, and we call up Jeff Bezos and we say we represent 2,000 of the best Amazon sellers out there, and we do $15 billion a year, and we'd like to have a discussion with you about some things that we think would help us and the rest of your clientele sell more, he's going to take the call. He's going to take the meeting. But if you, so it happened. I came from a big cooperative in the flooring business, and they do $10-11 billion a year. I spent 20 years there. And that's the way it started out. Like if you go to the suppliers in the beginning, they would have said, we're not talking to you, Mr. Independent Retailer. But now when you go and they do 10 billion and the largest supplier does 10 billion, you've got two 800-pound gorillas talking to each other, as opposed to, an 800-pound gorilla in a lemur. A lemur is a tiny little thing. So
lemur's lunch.
Right. He eats that and doesn't even realize that's a snack. But it really allows you to level the playing field and get economies of scale in place. That's what a cooperative is there for. So it's all the fancy stuff about, cash back and everything else. Forget all that for a second. Those are all benefits. They're lovely. They're wonderful. But in our management team, we have our one founder, Steve Simonson. He comes, he's been in internet. He's been in e-commerce before e-commerce was cool. He really started it into it very, very early on. And so he's very well known. And we do have relationships with the Amazon team. Can we make them do what we want? Can we bend them to our will? No, but at least we can get in front of them and have discussions. If you want to see something really interesting, Jay, the on our site up at the top, there's a tab that says Dear John, and we have actually put in effect a template that anybody that's selling on Amazon, they can send a Dear John letter to Amazon. And for those of your listeners who don't know Montgomery Ward's, they probably don't know what a Dear John letter is either. But a Dear John letter was typically when a female was breaking up with a male, she would write, Dear John, I used to love you, but I don't anymore. And so we took that idea, made it kind of fun. We told the people at Amazon we were doing it because they need to hear it too. And everybody's kind of intimidated. They don't want to say anything to the 800-pound gorilla. The lemurs don't, because they're afraid they're going to get eaten. But if you do it in a funny way, in a way that's already been, described to Amazon as occurring, then all of a sudden it becomes okay. So they can go, your listeners can actually go to our site and write a Dear John letter saying, Amazon, I've always loved you. I'm doing $200,000 a month with you, but these draconian changes that you made, and you're taking perfectly good and legitimate reviews off of my site. I can't do it anymore. I'm breaking up with you. I found another love, which is Rakuten. So, that's an example of what you could do. So, but it's that power of getting together that can set an entrepreneur up for much more success than being alone.
Got it. Now, again, forgive my ignorance, but I think what's happening here is that where you function in the prevalence which I think of Amazon, it's similar to in my industry with in real estate / short-term rentals. Most of the time people go straight to, say, an Airbnb, and they just don't know that there are other marketplaces where we can source our customers from. I'm just going to take a stab and ask, you are saying that there's other marketplaces other than Amazon, which me as the lay consumer, I'm like, well, where is this? Where a business owner can go to actually still have a very viable and sustainable business.
Absolutely. I mean, off the top of my head, there's Jet was on its own, but then Walmart bought them. So now it's Walmart and Jet. I think they still operate separately, but they are owned by Walmart. There's Rakuten that I discussed, and Rakuten's this giant global company. They sponsor Football Club Barcelona, one of the most valuable sports teams in the world. They also sponsor, if you see the R on the jersey of the Golden State Warriors on Seth Curry, that's him. Okay. That's Rakuten. So Steph's wearing, he's wearing the Rakuten circle. If you Shakira, we saw her in concert at the Rakuten conference because they sponsored her tour. So they're huge, and they're a marketplace out of Japan. Then you have Bonanza in the United States. You have Overstock.com. You have Etsy. You have eBay. Man, I know I'm forgetting a few. eBay, Etsy, Rakuten. Yeah, I'm forgetting 2 or 3, but they're all over the place. And Sears even has, a name that is struggling. I was in a Kmart store last week in the Keys, and I was surprised they were still open, frankly. But the lady said, yeah, we're really struggling. And, again, they were a dominant player, and nobody stays on top forever. It's just not the way of the world. But yeah, there's all these other places you can go buy. Wayfair's another online shopping. So there's all kinds of different marketplaces you can go to.
What I love about this is that you don't know what you don't know until you start asking the questions, and then now it's beginning to make a whole lot of sense as I'm continually listening to you, going, oh, I get it now, I understand. And to some degree, it sounds like Empowery could be like, for lack of a better way of putting it, this warm, comfy blanket of protection against the big, as you call it, 800-pound gorilla in the room for those that are members.
I can tell the reason you've been successful is because you're a wordsmith. I've not used the comfy blanket one, which I might take and make my own and never tell anybody that hasn't listened to this podcast. But the one that I use it is a safety net. Think of a trapeze act, right? Most trapeze act, if they have any brains in their head, and I used to know some trapeze people who did trapeze down in Florida, so they were always crazy to me. But if they had a net underneath them, their chances of them getting hurt are a lot less. And the same thing if they have an umbrella. Like if you are at an outdoor concert and you have a good sturdy roof over your head, you're going to be protected from the elements. That's what I really say Empowery is. We have the safety net below you and the umbrella or the protection above you, so you can freely navigate and freely operate and freely innovate in between the top and the bottom, and you don't have as many worries as the individual.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. The more that I hear, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if I was in the e-commerce space of some kind, I've thought about e-commerce, and I'll be very, very transparent here, Barth. There, a couple of years back, when I released my first book on Amazon, I got introduced to the concept and the idea of just trying to ship a product to people. And it went so horribly that I'm like, oh God, I am never shipping another product to anyone ever again. This is so painful to get right. And when you get it wrong, it's like, oh man, we did everything wrong. So even though I think about e-commerce a lot, like in my industry, with like short-term rentals, we go through soap and the toiletries and like a toiletry kit like mad, right? And I'm like, man, I could start a toiletry company. But then I was like, oh, that's product. And then I got to source it. And I got to do all of those things. You guys must have some wizardry going on, because it was overwhelming for me. So, and I'm saying all this to say, because I know that there's some people listening who are going, oh, that sounds great. But you said earlier that they have to already be in existence. What about the person who's like literally getting inspired to go, okay, so there is an umbrella. Like you said, there is a roof. I can be protected, because that's what they were afraid of. And now they're ready to start, but they could still feel a little excluded. What are they to do?
Well, they need to get a hold of me regardless, because, we believe we want more people to be, obviously we want a bigger universe. So of people that can join Empowery. So we obviously would love to see people be successful in e-commerce if they're not already. So we have kicked around quite often having a, like a 1.0, Empowery 1.0, and really trying to help people that are starting off. So if someone's in that boat that is listening, please sail this way, because we want to talk. But because the same principles apply, but if you think about cash back and you think about self-liquidating the monthly fee, it's $250 a month to belong to our cooperative. And that's it. You've got to buy $1,000 share of stock up front too. So there's a couple other fees, but nothing they're all nominal compared to what other people charge for information in the e-commerce business.
I'm sorry. I'm being, I'm just letting no filter right now. I'm like, that sounded relatively free to me, but all right.
Well, it is. I'll go one step. I'll raise your ante one in the sense that in the sense that you get cash back on everything you use. So that $250 goes away as you use more and more programs. You start to earn more and more money. If we did an example, for instance, of a typical business using our programs, really supporting the group, and they were making it's a fake company, but we just kind of went in and did a spreadsheet, which I have and I'm willing to share with anyone. But they were making $560 a month against the $250 that they were paying. So basically $310 a month is coming back their way. I mean, how is that a bad thing in any regard? So it really is that you're getting all these services, and I want to make something else clear too. We don't actually do all the things as far as those things I started to read off to you. But we negotiate with the company that does it, so the entrepreneur has a direct relationship with these companies. So the only time we get involved is like with the inventory financing. It's called Upfund or Free Up or MuseMinded. Any of these companies, or Snapship, any of these companies we use. Here's the other joy of a cooperative. We let them do business as long as they're playing well in the sandbox. We let them do business directly with one another. But the moment something goes wrong, I always tell people, don't waste your time yelling at anybody at one of our vendors. Call us. If anybody's going to yell and yell louder and yell on your behalf, it's going to be us, because we're yelling with, we don't yell often. We're actually lovable, fuzzy blankets, I think you said earlier, word comfy blanket. But we would be, it is our job. We look at it as our job to go to those vendors and say, don't mess with this member. They are a great member. They don't mess around. This is a completely legitimate claim they're filing. Just take care of it. And I've made that call dozens and dozens of times in my last life.
Wow.
So we're there to help no matter what, good or bad.
Yeah. Everything that you're saying it's like, man, maybe I can do shipping again. No. And I know I need to focus and stay where we're staying, because I know there's such an opportunity. Because again, as you keep talking, I keep thinking very selfishly, but like an entrepreneur, I'm going, man, finally, maybe this is what was missing and why we had such a hard time with putting together a toiletry company that could fulfill the needs, not only ours, but we have a vast student population, and there's such a need for what we've got. And everything that you're saying is like the solution to the problems that we had. I was like, wow, I think that's an amazing thing that most people don't know, that you guys, or cooperatives in general, exist. Like before this conversation, I may have heard the word, but I didn't understand it. Why do you think that's the case? They because the individuals own the shares. It just isn't. Think about like Ace Hardware and True Value Hardware and Welch's Grape Juice and Sunkist Navel Oranges and Blue Diamond Almonds. Those are all cooperatives. But because the individuals own the locations, they're merchandising and marketing and buying together. But the individuals own the locations, so it just doesn't get as much press. I don't know really what it is, but it's never. My first job in a cooperative was 1994 when I first started working for the one that I mentioned earlier at CCA Global Partners in the flooring business, and I started with them in '94, and yet even after all this time, I still have to explain cooperatives just like I did back then. It's like, people still don't get it, but it all credit unions are cooperatives too. So if you ever belonged or used a credit union, you belong to a cooperative and you don't even know it in a lot of cases. Wow. I think it's amazing what you guys got going on and what you're doing, and just how you're creating a safe place, if you will, because being in business is challenging enough. Not being by yourself is definitely a leg up for so many. So for those that have listened this far and are probably like seeing opportunities for themselves, or at least curious and want to find out more, what's going to be the best way for them to find out more or follow up with you guys?
Well, we have a pretty robust website. We've worked on it long and hard. and that's at empowery.com, EMPOWERY.com. The Dear John letters on there. There's the membership documents on there. We are so transparent. It's almost to a fault because there's nothing to hide. The members own the shares of stock. Anybody that qualifies could become a member. So we just publish everything, and we let everybody see under the covers. That's fine. But getting a hold of me directly is a really, the most efficient way. And that's just very simple. It's my first name, Barth, BARTH at empowery.com, and just get to me directly. And at this point, I am doing all the new membership myself because I want to make sure that everybody comes in the early going, is the right stuff. And so as we grow, I'll probably put staff on to, do the membership stuff, but it's worthy of my time right now, unquestionably.
Understood. Now, as we wind down here, I have a final question for you because I'm kind of curious to hear your answer. There's probably at least one individual who's having an experience right now, kind of like I am. And you know what? They're going, all right, I'm going to do this. And they're standing at what I like to call the precipice of a decision. Or maybe even standing in front of the superhero outfit store, picking out their cape and tights. They're like, I am going to make this happen. But like I know, Barth, that when we reach these moments of decision, what often happens is that we have a companion, and that companion comes in the form of a voice. And that voice reminds us of how it didn't work last time. And are you really sure? And oh my goodness, are you really, you're going to have an online bit? No way. And for some people, they're actually related to that voice. So my question to you is as follows. Let's pretend that this time they're actually going to follow through, and they're going to follow through in the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you suggest that they do?
Well, first, I listened to a podcast this morning about, and I forget the gentleman's name right now, but I could get it to you. But it was about, just the initial things you need to do to start selling online. And there's a ton of that information out there, a ton. One of our vendors that we like a lot, it's called Amazing Selling Machine, AMZ, and they really, it's amazing.com. They really are, good at taking the independent and the newbie, the person that's the solopreneur that really wants to get into this, and teaching them how to do it. So, but there's all kinds of information. There's all kinds of shows to go to rub elbows with people that know how to do it. But I would simply tell someone just to call me if they were really that, into it, because we know so many people. Part of having this family in Empowery of all these intelligent people is I would tell them, I would kind of ask them what, field they would like to be in, what category would they like to sell. Do they just want to be on Amazon? Do they want to have their own e-commerce site? There's a bunch of qualifying questions I would ask. I would just point them to the right person. And then when they get big enough, obviously they better remember I helped them because I want them to join Empowery.
Indeed, 100%. I like that. That's very transparent and true. If it hasn't been clear already, I definitely appreciate what you're doing, how you're enabling entrepreneurs to band together and be able to achieve more, do more, provide more jobs, and serve more people. And I definitely appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge, your wisdom, and your insight here with us today at the Cashflow Diary.
And I just want to make sure, as long as you know what cooperatives are, I think you might be the best cooperative salesman who ever lived now that you know what they are.
It's possible. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means, Empowery.com. Or for those of you who are like, dude, did he just say I can contact him directly? Yeah, he did. Barth at Empowery.com. So make it happen. Why? Because it's not normal for people to give you direct access, but more importantly, you're trying to do something that is extra normal. You want to be extraordinary. You want to provide more jobs. You have a vision, and e-commerce could be the vehicle that totally takes you there. Hey, there is no time like the present because like I know, all we got is now a clock. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.